crochet hook or the one you meet gauge with, a few stitch markers, scissors, darning needle to sew, measuring tape, and then I'm using 2 strands of this French kid silk in color 21. You can also use DK or sport weight yarn, only 1 strand if you meet gauge with that. This pattern is using US crochet terminology and is available in sizes extra small to 5 extra large, and you can find all the details about the pattern on coffeeandcrocheting.com. Now let's get started. So when our ribbing is as long as the pattern says, then it's time to start the body. I chain 2 on the last row after the ribbing, and then we're now going to crochet here for the body. So we will, here you can see the rows of ribbing. So we're going to crochet 1 stitch in every row. So here's a row, here's a row, here is 1 row, here is 1 row, here is 1 row. So I usually find it's easiest to just place 1 stitch there, 1 there, 1 down here, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down. Because it doesn't have to be exactly in the row. And we're going to make herringbone double crochet stitch. So to do that, we yarn over, insert the hook in the stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 1 of the loops, yarn over, pull through 1 of the loops, yarn over, pull through both of the loops. So again, yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So it starts to look like this. And then continue in every row across all the way, ending with the final stitch in the final row. Chain 2 and turn, and then make herringbone double crochet in every stitch across the row. And then repeat row 2 until it's time to split for the front and back. To make the fronts and the back, we've made our rows until the front and the back first, and then we're going to put our stitch markers in the X stitch from each edge, so 2 stitch markers. So like 40th stitch from the edge and 45th stitch from the edge, and the same from the other side, same amount of stitches from this edge. And then we're going to begin with front 1, that will be worked until this stitch markers. Front 2 will be worked from this side, or from this side until that, and then the back will be made between the pink stitch markers. But we start with front 1. So then we're simply making a herringbone double crochet 2 together. So I yarn over, make my beginning, yarn over, insert the hook in the next stitch, make that same beginning, and then pull through 2, pull through 2. And then I just continue with the normal herringbone double crochet until the stitch with the stitch marker, and then a final herringbone double crochet in the stitch with the stitch marker. And then just end with the herringbone double crochet in the stitch with the stitch mark. Chain 2 and turn. And then for row 2 we're going to work until our 2 final stitches and then make a herringbone double crochet 2 together here, and then again about half double herringbone double crochet 2 together, and then work until the end of the row. So you always increase here on the, or decrease here on the edge. So here we have our front one, and then we're going to start to make our front 2 and back sections. So for our front 2 we will attach our yarn in the 4th stitch marker. So we're counting from the first front. So this is the first front, and here is the first stitch marker, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So for front 2 we attach in the 4th, and then we just attach with a slip knot, chain 2, and then make a herringbone double crochet in that same stitch, and then continue to make herringbone double crochet until the 2 final stitches, where we will make herringbone double crochet 2 together, and continue in the same way as for front 1, always making 2 together on the edge. For the back we will attach our hook in the 2nd stitch marker, so that's again counting from first front, 1st and 2nd stitch marker. Attach in the same way as for front 2, so in the stitch with the stitch marker we make a, or attach with a slip knot, chain 2, and then a herringbone double crochet in that same stitch, and then work your herringbone double crochet all the way until the 3rd stitch marker. So this will just be flat rows for the back, and just continue rows back and forth here until it's as long as for front 1. So when you made the front like this and back and the other front, you will fold these. So you fold them like this, so that the top of the front meet the top of the back, and the same on the other side. So it will look like this in the middle. And then you simply start to sew the shoulders here. I like to use the whip stitch for sewing. So I first insert my hook or needle like this to go through both sides, and then I make sure to line them up, and then I just match the 2nd stitch with the 2nd, the 3rd with the 3rd, like this all the way. All the way here. To begin the sleeve you will attach your yarn here on the sleeve opening. Here is the neckline, so here is the sleeve. So you start here in the bottom and attach your yarn with the slip knot in the middle stitch. Then chain 2, and then start with your herringbone double crochet in the first stitch. And you will just continue around. Here 1 stitch in every stitch. But then when you come here now to the side, then you will have to work in the rows. It will be approximately 3 stitch per 2 rows. So when you have 2 rows like this, you will have 3 stitches there. So 3 stitches per 2 rows. So 1, 2, and 3. And then just on some rows you will have to add a 4th, and then we'll have stitches here on the top and on the bottom here. And if you feel, and you can always add also extra stitches here to make sure it's no holes here, and then continue to approximately have 3 stitches per row. But add as many stitches as for your size, which you will find in the pattern. So when you've made the final stitch of the round, it's time to join. You do that by inserting your hook in the first stitch of the row and make a slip stitch. So you yarn over and pull through, and then we chain 2 and turn. And it's important that you make the first stitch in the actual first stitch, so that's that one there. And then when you end the row, you need to make sure to end on the correct stitch. So you will make the final stitch in that one and not that, because that is the first round here. But if you count the rows or count the stitches, you'll know that you made correct. So here's the first. And just continue around. You can mark the first stitch with a stitch marker if you prefer to find it easier. Then when we're going to make decrease rows or decrease rounds, we will make the first stitch as a herringbone, herringbone double crochet 2 together, just like we did on the body with the decreases. So then you'll just make the decrease here on the first stitch, and then work the round as normal until the 2 final stitches where you will make the decrease stitch again, and then join and repeat decrease rounds for as many as you prefer until the sleeve is the width you prefer, or as according to the pattern. If you prefer to have it wider than the pattern says, then you make fewer decrease rounds, but then you make sure to make them as evenly as possible across. So when you made the final row on the sleeve, you're ready for the ribbing, and you make that by chaining 10. And you make that by chaining 11, not 10. And then you just continue to make the normal single crochets in the back bump like you did on the body ribbing. So when you made your 10 single crochets like this, you will join to the sleeve by making a slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. So that's in that stitch and that stitch. So you insert your hook, make a slip stitch, and then same in next stitch, like that. And then you chain 1, and then I turn, and we will continue with the next row. So we skip the 2 slip stitches we made, and then we continue to make single crochet in the back loop all the way up. So 10 single crochet in the back loop all the way up, and then you repeat this all the way around. We've now made all the ribbing rows for the sleeves, and we're ready to seam together. So then we just take our needle and thread and start seaming. So I'll do the whip stitch. So I go under, and then I go under both sides like this. Making sure to match the sides. And continue all the way up and then fast enough. For the neckline we will attach our yarn here on the bottom ribbing. So attach it here in the bottom. Right side facing out. I'm using a larger crochet hook for the ribbing. But feel free to use the same if you like. So attach it with a slip knot. And then here on the ribbing stitches you make one single crochet in every stitch. And now when you reach the body, you will have to see a bit how many stitches that looks the best. I'll try to add 3 stitches per 2 rows and see how that looks. Then I take out my hook and place it flat like this after a few stitches to see that it's keeping straight, which it does. So for me 3 stitches per 2 rows is a good amount of stitches. You could always try to go down a hook size and use 2 stitches per row. If they get too far apart. If this looks wobbly, then you have too many stitches and will need to have fewer stitches per row. If it looks like it pulls, like a lot of spaces between, then you have too few stitches and need to add more stitches in between. But yeah, continue with the ribbing all the way up here, neckline, over to the other side and down to this. And then on the next row we will make the stitches in the back loop, and then after a few rows we will start to add buttonholes. So I'll meet you back then. So when I've made 5 rows of the ribbing, I want to add the buttonholes. So I place out stitch markers here on one of the sides for where the buttonholes will be. So here's the top, and then down like this. So to place the stitch markers, I simply decided where I wanted the first button and the last button here, and then I placed the other 3 in the middle of those. So that's the easiest way, I think. The buttonholes are made on row 6, so that ended, the row 5 ended here. So now I've simply been crocheting around here, up, over, and now I reached the first stitch marker. So here I will chain 2, and then I skip the stitch with the stitch marker and the stitch after, and then continue to crochet in the back loop here. And then I do like that for every stitch marker. So crochet in the back loop until the stitch marker. And now chain 2, skip the stitch with the stitch marker and the next stitch, and then in the back loop, and continue like that until the final stitch marker, and then in the back loop all the way down, and then up and over again for 5 more rows. So when you then reach the chains, you will just crochet in the back loop of the chain, and here you can see that we've created a buttonhole. How large of a hole, you will have to measure your button. I placed the button next to the stitches to see how wide it is, and then took a bit smaller width. So mine was 2 stitches, or a bit over 2 stitches wide. So then I chain 2, but if you have 3, then you chain 3 and skip 3 stitches and so forth. So that's how you measure that. Yeah, but then just continue with trimming. So the buttons will be added here on the underside, opposite side of the stitch marker. The stitch marker, here we have our buttonhole, and we will add the button to the opposite side. So that simplest is that you just measure here from the bottom up where you have your buttonhole. So I have mine at 3 centimeters. So then I'll add the button at 3 centimeters, and on the 6th row to match the buttonhole, and then I just simply seam that in place and continue to repeat that for all 5. I seam it by just going up and down through the cardigan a few times. First just through this, and then up and down and around. I use the same thread as the cardigan, but you could just use the normal sewing thread as well.